Hello, everybody, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Monday, the 22nd of September. Today, I am sharing with you from a day by our Daily Bread collection, and this is from a couple of years ago, from October, November, December of 2022. I've tagged a couple of things. I'm going to share this one for you. This one's from October 24th. And the scripture it has is 1 Samuel 17. Verse 48 says here, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. And the subject title is Fleeing from Turkeys. 2 wild turkeys stood in the country lane ahead. How close could I get, I wondered. I slowed my jog to a walk, then stopped. It worked. The turkeys walked toward me and kept coming. In seconds, their heads were bobbing at my waist, then behind me. How sharp were those beaks? I ran away. They waddled after me before giving up the chase. How quickly the tables had turned. The hunted had become the hunter when the turkeys seized the initiative. Foolishly, I had wondered if they were too dumb to be scared. I wasn't about to be carelessly surrounded by wounded by a bird, so I fled from turkeys. David didn't seem so dangerous, so Goliath taunted him to come near. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. David flipped the script when he seized the initiative. He ran toward Goliath, not because he was foolish, but because he had confidence in God. He shouted, "This very day the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." Goliath was puzzled by this aggressive boy. What's going on, he must have thought. Then it hit him, right between the eyes. It's natural for small animals to run from people and shepherds to avoid giants. It's natural for us to hide from our problems. Why settle for natural? Is there God in Israel? Then in his power, run toward the fight. The prayer they have here is, Father, whenever I'm afraid, remind me that your spirit is in me. Help me to run in your strength. The question they ask us to think about is, what problem or person are you avoiding? How might you express confidence in God? Well, what are you avoiding? In my world, sometimes it feels like, what am I not avoiding? I avoid going to the doctor. I hate going to the doctor and dentists and things like that. They seldom have anything good to say. And when they do, there's usually the downturn of, you should do this or you shouldn't do that, or you should have done this years ago. And it doesn't really get helpful, does it? I avoid, like the plague for years and years, I've avoided confrontation. I don't like fighting with people. Although people who know me well can say, well, really? Yeah, I don't mind a good argument sometimes. But number one, I have to feel pretty confident that I can win. And number two, I have to trust the person I'm arguing with. Because it's not a fight, it's not fisticuffs. It's that knowing that you're sparring with somebody that you trust. Somebody isn't going to take a shot below the belt. Someone who's going to pick you up if you get knocked down, or you're going to pick them up if they got knocked down. And you're going to dust each other off and say, hey, do you want to go for coffee? That's not the kind of thing that I avoid. But there are lots of things in my life that I have avoided. There are things that I have held off on, things I have worried about. I remember for years and years thinking, that I loved God and I loved the church and I loved all the things in the church, but I could not preach. There was no way I could preach. And so, although since the time I was 5 years old, my mother had been telling me that I could be a priest, because the first women bishops in the Diocese of Huron, one of them, who was ordained women priests, not bishops. I am the first women bishop from Huron, I believe. Anyway, set that aside. One of the first women priests from the Diocese of Huron, Virginia Lane, was ordained in 1976, and she had been a student at our church, Trinity's Anglican Church in St. Thomas, and my mom knew her. And then the year or two after that, Georgina Foster, who is Georgie Foster Haig, she was then our student as well and became an ordained woman priest in the Diocese of Huron. So from the time I was 5 years old, from the time I remember, my mom would say, you can grow up and be a priest. And for many years I avoided that. And it wasn't so much that I believed that I wasn't called to be a priest. It was that I believed I couldn't speak in public. I could not preach. I certainly couldn't sing. I still don't sing. But I do preach, and I think I do okay. But I was terrified of standing up in front of people and preaching because I didn't trust in myself that I'd be okay. And that in itself is okay. Trusting in yourself, not trusting yourself, that's okay. It's when you don't trust in God that there comes a problem. David, probably, if he'd given it much thought, wouldn't have thought that he as a young boy shepherd, could really take on Goliath. I mean, bears and wolves, maybe, but Goliath? No, probably not. And yet, when it came down to it, he realized he was the only one who could. And so he did as he had to. He did as he needed to. He stood up in the Lord. He stood up and he conquered Goliath. Did he beat him and pummel him to death? No. 5 smooth stones. He used the tools that he had, the gifts that God had shared with him all those years of being a shepherd, all those years of being a kid, probably competing with his brothers and his friends about, who can hit this with who can be most accurate with their slingshot. David simply used the gifts that he had already had, that God had already grown in him, to face off against the foe that God presented in front of him. And it worked. And here we are. I think that's what we need to hang on to, is that we need to not run away from the things that scare us. What we need to do is hunker down, allow ourselves to sit down on God's knee and say, okay, which of the things that you have given me in my life, which of the challenges, which of the gifts, which of the things I've tried and failed at, but from which I've learned, which of those things, or how many of those things, do I need right now to go out and face my fears, to conquer whatever it is that's ahead of me? The truth is, if we would simply put our trust in God, we would recognize that we can indeed do this. And that's a pretty amazing feeling. So what do you think? How about today you figure out what it is that's driving you crazy? What's that thing that's scaring you the most, that you're procrastinating about? And sit down, hop into God's lap, and say, God, help me, please. And allow God to stand you back up and send you on your way knowing that you are equipped. You got this. Go get it done. And then let me know how it goes. Have a great day and God bless. I'll see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.